Sicily is a beautiful island in the Mediterranean Sea. It's part of Italy, but, it really has its own special history and culture. For thousands of years, so many different groups of people came to Sicily. Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and Normans all ruled this land at different times. Each group left its mark, from the food people eat to the buildings they live in. This history made Sicily a very unique place, honestly, a crossroads of different worlds. The island is known for its sunny weather, its amazing food like pasta and cannoli, and its stunning landscapes with mountains and beaches. It's a place filled with ancient ruins and vibrant cities. This long history of being ruled by outsiders was, really important. The people of Sicily often didn't trust their foreign rulers. The government was usually far away in another city, like Naples or Rome. These governments didn't always care about the everyday problems of Sicilian people. They sent officials who didn't understand the local ways and often just wanted to collect taxes. This created a deep feeling of suspicion. Sicilians learned to rely on themselves and their families, not on the state or the police. This mistrust of official authority became a key part of Sicilian life for many centuries. Because of this, Sicilians created their own ways of handling problems. They had strong family bonds and village loyalties. If someone had a dispute, they might go to a respected local elder instead of a judge. This was seen as a quicker and more reliable way to get justice. This system was based on honor and respect, which were very important ideas. People learned to keep secrets and not to talk to the police or government officials. This code of silence, known as, became a powerful tradition. It was a way for communities to protect themselves from outside interference and control their own affairs. This environment was the perfect soil for secret groups to grow. Imagine a place where the official law is weak and untrusted. People still need protection. They need someone to make sure contracts are honored and that criminals are punished. Into this gap stepped small groups of men who offered their own kind of justice. They promised to protect the local people from bandits and to settle disputes fairly. At first, many people saw them as helpful figures, like local guardians. This was the world that gave birth to the organization that would later become known as the Mafia. The Mafia did not appear overnight. It began to take shape in the 19th century, especially after 1861, when Sicily became part of the new country of Italy. This was a time of great change and chaos. The new Italian government was weak in Sicily. It could not control the countryside where there were many bandits. The police were few and often ineffective. Landowners with large farms, especially those growing valuable lemons and oranges, were worried. They needed to protect their crops and their property from thieves. They couldn't rely on the state, so they looked for another solution to their pressing problems. This is where the first mafia groups, known as, found their opportunity. A is the Italian word for the leafy crown of an artichoke, with its layers tightly protecting the center. This was a good name for these groups, which were secretive and tightly knit. They were formed by tough local men who were good with guns and had a reputation for being brave and ruthless. Wealthy landowners started hiring these men as private guards for their estates. Their job was to keep bandits away and to make sure the farm workers behaved. This was the Mafia's first real business. These groups quickly realized they could do more than just offer protection. They started to act like a small, unofficial government in their local area. They became the middlemen in many parts of Sicilian life. If two farmers had an argument over land, they would go to the local mafia boss, not a court. The boss would listen to both sides and make a decision. His decision was final because everyone knew he had the power and the willingness to use violence to enforce it. This made them very powerful figures in their communities, often more respected and feared than the actual mayor or police chief. Over time, these groups created their own rules and rituals. They had initiation ceremonies where new members had to swear an oath of loyalty. This oath was a sacred promise to the organization, more important than any loyalty to the family or the state. Members called themselves men of honor. They saw themselves not as criminals, but as people who upheld a different, older kind of law. They built a network that connected different villages and towns. This network allowed them to control large areas of the Sicilian countryside, operating in the shadows, far from the eyes of the official government in Rome. One of the most important activities of the early Mafia was providing protection. This sounds like a good thing, but it had a dark side. The Mafia would approach a landowner or a shopkeeper and offer to protect them from criminals. The business owner would have to pay a regular fee for this service. This fee was called the. The word might come from the Sicilian dialect for beak, as in a bird taking its small share. At first, this might have seemed like a fair price for keeping real bandits away. The men of honor would ensure that no one else would dare to rob that shop or farm. However, this protection was not really a choice. If a shopkeeper refused to pay something bad would often happen. His shop might be burned down or his crops destroyed. The threat came from the very same people who were offering the protection. It was a simple and brutal system. Pay us, and we will protect you, partly from ourselves. This practice of extortion became the main source of income for the Mafia. It allowed them to build their wealth and expand their influence. They were no longer just guards. They were running a business based on fear and intimidation. The Mafia also got involved in politics. To operate freely, they needed to make sure the police and politicians would look the other way. They used their influence in local communities to deliver votes. A Mafia boss could tell everyone in his village who to vote for in an election. In return, the politician who won would have to do favors for the Mafia. This could mean stopping a police investigation, giving a government contract to a Mafia-controlled company, or helping a member get out of jail. This corruption made the Mafia even stronger and harder to fight. This mix of activities created a complex situation. To some people, the local Mafia boss was still a respected figure. He might help a poor family, find a job for someone's son, or settle a dispute fairly. He was a part of the community. But at the same time, he was a criminal who used violence and fear to get what he wanted. He broke the law, corrupted officials, and forced people to pay him money. The early Mafia existed in this grey area between being a community guardian and a criminal organization. This dual role made it very difficult for outsiders to understand and for the state to defeat. As the 19th century ended and the 20th century began, the Mafia's roots in Sicily grew deeper and stronger. The organization became more structured and sophisticated. It was not just a collection of local gangs anymore. It was a connected network that shared information, resources, and power across the island. The different worked together when it was useful, but they also fought with each other over territory and business. This network was known among its members as, which means our thing. It was a secret society that had its own laws and its own form of justice, completely separate from the Italian state. The Mafia's power was based on its control of the land and the local economy. They controlled the water supply for farms, which was crucial in a dry climate like Sicily's. They controlled who got contracts for building roads and buildings. They even controlled who could sell their produce at the market. By controlling these essential parts of life, they could make sure that almost everyone depended on them in some way. This economic power, combined with their use of violence and their political connections, made them almost untouchable. They had become a central part of how Sicily worked. The story of the Mafia's origin is a story about weakness. It began because the official government was weak and could not provide basic security and justice for its people. The Mafia grew by filling this vacuum. They offered a brutal but effective alternative. They provided a kind of order where there was chaos. This is why they were able to gain so much power, and why, for a long time, many ordinary Sicilians accepted their presence. They were a product of Sicily's unique and often troubled history, a history of foreign rule and deep-seated mistrust of authority. In conclusion, the Sicilian Mafia was not born from a single event, but grew slowly from the island's social and political soil. The combination of a history of foreign rulers, a weak state, and the need for protection created the perfect conditions for a secret society to flourish. Starting as protectors of lemon groves, they expanded their power through extortion, political corruption, and violence. They created their own shadow government, which became deeply embedded in Sicilian society. Understanding these origins helps explain why the Mafia became such a powerful and lasting force.